So I want to teach you guys how to graph with a horizontal shift, sine and cosine. Having a look over here at the graph of which do you think we're looking at? So you should know by now the typical graphs of sine and cosine just by looking at them. This is the graph of y equals sine of x with amplitude 1, period 2 pi, baseline high, baseline low, baseline. That is definitely sine. This is definitely cosine, also with an amplitude of 1 and a period of 2 pi, giving it the classic look of cosine, starting high, then baseline, then low, then baseline, then high. One thing to keep in mind is that each one of these graphs is split into 4 equal subintervals, and then we're going to use that when we're talking about the graphs that have a horizontal shift. So the first one I want to look at is perhaps the graph of y equals 2 sine of 2x plus pi over 4. So suppose I wanted to graph this. Notice that on this graph has a horizontal shift. How do you know? Well, you have a plus c. I'll look over here. What I've got here is a plus c value, and I need to be able to take care of that. The horizontal shift is a formula that you can use, is always negative c over b. So if you just look at the c value, put a negative on it, and divide by the b value that's showing up, you can get your horizontal shift. So let's do that here. We've got a c value of negative pi over 4, and we've got a b value of 2. And when you divide that, notice that you're dividing by 2 over 1. So correctly doing the arithmetic, that's multiplying by a half. What do you get there? You get negative pi over 8. This is the horizontal shift, and because it's negative, the horizontal shift then is to the left of the origin, and I'm just going to place a point over here at negative pi over 8. The horizontal shift is always the first x value that you want to mark on your x-axis. So I've done that now. So now what? And here's the next step. You would just take the period, and how do you compute the period? Well, you remember, it's always 2 pi divided by b, and the b value in this case is 2, so I divide by 2, I get pi. So this is the period, this is the length of the entire cycle. However, what I'm interested in is not the length of the entire cycle, but the length of each of these subintervals. So every cycle of sine and cosine is divided into 4 equal subintervals. That's the same as saying that all you need to do is divide the entire cycle length, which is called the period. You need to divide the entire cycle length by 4 in order to know all of your spacing values between x values. So what I'm saying is just take the period, divide by 4. So we'll take the period, which equals pi, and we divide by 4. So let's divide that by 4, and what we see is that this is the spacing between each of my tick marks, okay? Not for this graph here, because that had a period of 2 pi, but rather for this graph that I'm working with over here, because it has a period of pi. So this tells me how far away from my very first point the next point is. So that's very valuable information. It's always period divided by 4 to be able to get this spacing value. So when I add these up, you got to do this correctly. You have to find the common denominator. So let's multiply top and bottom by 2. And so we have positive 2 pi plus negative 1 pi, and that gives us positive pi, and that would be over 8. This is my second x value that I need to put down on the x-axis. So that's my second x value. And I just continue with that. I know that each one of my x values is pi over 4 away from the previous one. So I continue adding the spacing on, and also I have to do the arithmetic correctly each time, remembering that you need a common denominator. So what do I get here? I get 3 pi over 8. Okay. Now come back to the x-axis and notice that the way I marked it is this is 1 pi over 8, this would be 2 pi over 8, and this would be 3 pi over 8. So correctly space one x value away from the other. So now I've marked my 3 pi over 8. And so where is my fourth tick value? Well, again, it is pi over 4 away from the third tick value. So add on pi over 4. This is the same, of course, as adding 2 pi over 8 to 3 pi over 8, and we get 4 pi, pardon me, 5 pi over 8. So we get 5 pi over 8, and then we've got to come over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be 5 pi over 8 right there. And so I will mark that as kind of making a mess here. So let me clean that up a bit. So I would mark that as 5 pi over 8. Where's the very last tick mark? Remember, there's only 5, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 critical tick marks within each cycle. I'm only going to graph one cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need one more. The spacing is always consistent. So again, 2 spaces away. When I add on 2 pi over 8, I would get to 7 pi over 8. Great. Now I just need to graph this. And oh well, I do need to mark the x-axis. I'm just gonna go up 3. It doesn't matter. Remember, it doesn't matter how much you go up. Just to make a pretty picture, I'm just gonna clear the values so I don't run into the values on the x-axis. And I'm marking it with 2 and -2 because this is the amplitude. Okay, so great. Now I'm ready to graph this. And I know that this is sine, so I start baseline. Remember how it goes baseline high, the next one. So this is right there, baseline high, baseline low, baseline. Okay, and then I just try and draw this as a nice smooth curve, connecting the points that I just placed with a nice smooth curve. And this would be one cycle of this graph. Okay, done. All right, that's how we do it. And just to give you another example, let's do a cosine one. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here and let's graph, say, y equals, I'll make one up, 3 cosine of 3x minus pi. Okay, so as we can see, we have a c value sitting here, and so we definitely have a horizontal shift. And how do you compute the horizontal shift? See if you can remember what the formula is, and then compute the horizontal shift. What is it? I'll remember, negative c over b. So let's do that. Let's do the negative of c. Now notice that your c value is negative, so it's the negative of a negative. And we will divide by b, which is 3. So what I'm finding here is that I'm computing pi over 3 is my horizontal shift, okay? And as we said before, this is going to be your very first tick mark on the x-axis. The period needs to be computed next. The period for this would be always 2 pi divided by b, and in this case my b is 3, sitting right here. And so this is the period. But what we realized too is that we need the spacing. So that's always the period divided by 4. And let me just remind you, the reason why we're dividing by 4 is that all of our cycles for sine and cosine are divided up into 4 equal subintervals. So the full cycle in this graph that I'm showing you at right is of length 2 pi, and yet when I divide it up 4 equal ways, then each of the subintervals is has a value of pi over 2. Okay, so we'll mimic that and we'll come over here, divide by 4, and so what we have is 2 pi over 3 times 1/4. This is the same thing as divide by 4. If I cancel this off, then what I'm getting is pi over 6. Okay, so what I know is that my first tick mark is pi over 3. This is the very first one. And I have pi over 6 is how far away the next tick mark is from the first one. So notice when I do this, I have to add these guys up, okay? Remembering to find the common denominator, multiply top and bottom by 2. What I get here is 2 plus 1 is 3, so I get 3 pi over 6. So here's what I need to do is plan the x-axis a bit. So here would be 1 pi over 6, here would be 2 pi over 6, here would be 3 pi over 6, here would be 4 pi over 6, etc. So if this is 1 pi over 6 and this is 2 pi over 6, then this is pi over 3. This is my first tick mark on the x-axis, as we said. Okay. The second one is 3 pi over 6, but do you guys see that this is actually pi over 2? Okay, so I have 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6. But I don't mark it 3 pi over 6, I mark it pi over 2. The next thing I do is I take that tick mark pi over 2, and again I need to add on the spacing of pi over 6. So let's do this correctly. Let's multiply top and bottom by 3, and what do we get then? We get 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 pi over 6. 4 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi over 3, and that's what I should mark. So I have 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6. Although this is 4 pi over 6, I mark it as 2 pi over 3. Okay, so as we can see, we're just going from one tick mark to the next with my critical tick marks, okay, and we're adding pi over 6 every time. This was 4 pi over 6, this will be 5 pi over 6. Okay, and then this will be 6 pi over 6 right here. And I have 5 that I need to line up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this is 6 pi over 6, which is pi. That will be the end of my cycle. Okay, so now I just need to plot the y-axis. Okay, so this guy right here is a 3, so yeah, why not? Why don't I go up here and call this instead 3? I'll call that 3. Of course, this would be 2 and this would be 1 if that were the case. I don't really need to actually mark though I don't really need to mark these values, just the 3. Okay, so let's go 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction, and I am ready to create my graph. Remember that cosine starts high, then goes baseline, then goes low, then goes baseline, then goes high. Now do your best to do a curve, not a bunch of lines connected together. And with my points being so close together, I'm having a hard time making a good graph. But I hope you get the idea here. This would be the graph of one cycle of y equals 3 cosine 3x minus pi. And there I have it with the horizontal shift. And do not use tables. That is the main point of this. All right, thanks for watching.